This is hands down the worst moment in the entirety of the Lee Kirby run. After witnessing this crime against Ben's humanity, I was left with just one burning question.
Who is responsible for this?
There are 4 possibilities. The 2 most obvious suspects are either Stan Lee or Jack Kirby. It's hard to tell because Marvel Comics used to be done by what's known as the Marvel method. The writer would send their ideas to the artist, and based on anything ranging from a detailed page-by-page summary or just a single paragraph, they would draw an entire issue. Then the writer would add dialogue. So it's entirely possible that Jack drew this scene with that intention and Stan had to write dialogue for it. Or maybe Jack intended it to be Ben willingly consenting to regaining his strength, only for Stan to angst it up with the dialogue. Another possibility is that one of the higher-ups decreed that they have to go down this route to make it as angsty as possible. The final possibility is that multiple parties or even everybody agreed that this was the right way to go for some bizarre reason. All I know is that I hate it. This change also makes Ben crushing Dr. Doom's hands a lot more warranted. In the comic, he is merely lashing out at the one indirectly responsible for his suffering instead of the jerk who forced him back into the superhero business. But in here, the guy who directly forced Ben to choose between his humanity and the lives of his friends as well as his own is getting his just desserts.
You're the reason I'm the thing again. The reason Alicia ain't never gonna have a normal life with me.
The others snap Ben out of his murderous rage, but Dr. Doom has one last trick up his sleeves. He has rigged a dimensional generator freeze to open up a tear in the space-time continuum that will destroy most of Manhattan.
Pity, really. I never did get to see cats.
They could have made this entire season consist of nothing but Dr. Doom stories, and I wouldn't care as long as Simon Templeman voiced him in every single one of them. Sue manages to contain the blast with her force field because, as I have said several times throughout this review, she is underrated. The day is saved, but their building is destroyed, so they'll have to rebuild it. However, they are more concerned about Ben Grimm. Talk about putting your best foot forward. Anything of quality would have seemed amazing after the first season. But the new production staff really went all out on kicking their tenure off with an exciting, action-packed story laced with just the right amount of characterization. A lot of DC Animated Universe fans look down on the 90s Marvel Animated Universe, accusing the various shows comprising it of being too much like the comics without any unique identity of their own. I do get that critique, but in my opinion it's only a problem when the stories are adapted poorly. There is nothing inherently wrong with seeing faithful renditions of these classic stories on the screen. I think the Marvel Animated Universe making their shows resemble the comics more than the DC Animated Universe's series helped me get more into Marvel Comics as a kid. However, even if that was the case for shows like Spider-Man and X-Men, then from an adaptation standpoint, Fantastic Four, the animated series, stands above them, thanks to instances like this where the writers go beyond doing the comics beat for beat and carefully change them in ways that enhance the stories. Literally, my only complaint about this episode is that perhaps this was a bit too good to start off with, as it was only topped a few times. But I'm sure that the most likely people to watch Season 2 were there at the beginning, and if the premiere was any good, they'd go tell all their friends so that they could catch next week's episode. With that in mind, I can totally understand why they would start off with an episode this good. Every time a Marvel comic references Fantastic Four issues 39 and or 40, I will always imagine that this is how the battle at the Baxter Building really went down.
Well, folks, that's the way it really happened.
Although rarely topped, most of the remaining 12 episodes lived up to the standards set by the premiere with 3 exceptions, only one of which I would call a truly bad episode. Perhaps someday I shall go over them all, reviewing each episode in chronological order and ranking them at the end. But upon rewatching the series, I can safely say that this is still my favorite Fantastic Four adaptation ever. If you haven't seen this show, check it out for yourself. The bright side of having to hold off on discussing it in full is that I am not spoiling everything. There's still a lot to enjoy if you check it out. You can watch it on Disney Plus, or you can still buy the DVD at a decent price online. As long as you start off with "and a blind man shall lead them," you shouldn't have any real problems aside from maybe the episode "When Calls Galactus" and the clip show "Hopelessly Impossible." Unfortunately, as good as the second season was, it just wasn't enough to overcome the negative reception to the first season, and that ended up sinking the show.
Let it be Fulton development.
It's really unfortunate because there were plans for the third season. In an interview with Tom Tataranowicz, he said that he hoped to bring back Namor and adapt the arc where Susan was pregnant with Franklin Richards. Her place on the team would have been filled by a heroine like Medusa or She-Hulk. Tom also wanted to do This Man, This Monster. While basically my biggest complaint about the second season is that it should have only consisted of stories adapted from Lee Kirby issues, I can't blame him for waiting to do this story. Ben Grimm should only turn back into a human once a season at most, because any more often would come across as yanking the poor guy's chain. Tom also said he wanted to lead up to issue 100, and had we gotten a very faithful adaptation of that, not only would we have been able to hear Neil Ross as the Puppet Master again, we might have seen him teamed up with the Mad Thinker. My money would have been on Roddy McDowall to play him, as he was still alive at the time. In the same interview, Tom said that while the advantage of being a syndicated series was that he didn't have to deal with network interference, the downside was that the individual syndicators were less inclined to advertise it than a network would, so people were unaware that the show was going to get a glow-up. While advertisements might not have been enough to save the show, I feel that they definitely would have helped. I mean, the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show advertised the darker and edgier Red Sky makeover for Season 8. And it managed to last 2 more seasons after that, so I'm sure even the slightest bit of advertising would have helped. If only the internet back then was more advanced. Any good word of mouth would have spread like wildfire, and the show could have been saved. But even if the efforts of the new writing team were all for naught, they went down swinging and gave us one excellent season, and if not for them stepping up to the task, both seasons could have very well made the Hanna-Barbera show look like Batman the Animated Series by comparison. I'm glad to have covered the show in any detail, even if what was intended to be the main course ended up being dessert. I was actually not sure that I wanted to do an episode on it at all. There are more reviews of it than Batfink or Saban's Little Mermaid, and the reviews usually boil down to the same talking points. The first season is terrible and the second season is superior. However, nobody has talked about how this show fixed problems from the comics, like that one scene which I can't believe isn't one of the most infamous moments in Marvel history, so I felt that was enough. And you know what? I came to realize that this is one of those hidden gems that can't be talked about enough. In this age of streaming, I'm sure that many people who have never heard of this show are going to check it out only to drop it before they finish the first season or even the first episode. We need to get the word out to them that episodes 14 through 26 of this show, as well as Iron Man the Animated Series, are well worth watching, and I am glad to have contributed to that movement.
Reed, how could you give in to Doom so easily? There must have been another way.
Yeah, you out of here,
Yeah, just a little bit of play acting. During the battle, I noticed Doom passed up several opportunities to finish us off.
Right, I get it. So once you figured out he had no intention of killing us, you pretended to give up.
Exactly. I played to his vanity to buy us time to develop an effective strategy.
Oh, yeah. And when you're playing to his vanity, you're playing to a packed house.
But this was not the end of quality series for the Fantastic Four, as they would get one more good show in 2006 with Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Heroes. I admittedly prefer the more traditional Marvel adaptations of the 80s and 90s, but going by the 3 episodes I've seen, this one is still pretty good. If it weren't for Spectacular Spider-Man, I'd say that it was my favorite post-90s Marvel animated series. My favorite episode so far is The Cure, which is what sold me on the series. Reed finally succeeds in turning the Thing back into Ben Grimm, but unfortunately he has lost his memories of everything that happened since he was hit by the cosmic rays. The other Fantastic Four members hold an audition to fill Ben's place, leading to cameos from a few obscure Marvel characters I recognize. Johnny makes fun of one of them, only to realize he picked the wrong heroine to mock.
How's this? Hot stuff.
You're cool. Woohoo! You don't happen to be any relation to...
Yeah, the Hulk's my cousin.
It's good enough for me.
She-Hulk is one of my all-time favorite Marvel heroines, and this episode did her justice. I'd even go as far as to say that it's the best adaptation of her character ever. This was a great episode that really left me wanting more. The only bad thing I can say about it is my main issue with the series so far, that Johnny is a bit too much of a jerk at times, even if it can still be funny.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. You guys aren't superheroes. You're a family. I can't take Ben's place, and besides, it doesn't seem like he needs replacing.
What? Oh, come on, stay, please. You could replace Sue.
Johnny, I'm standing right here.
We'll talk later.
I hope to give this series its own review in the distant future, but I just had to mention it in some way to show that at least thrice studios have gotten the Fantastic Four right. Whether it's the simplistic but faithful charm of the Hanna-Barbera version, the second season of the Saban series seeking to give us adaptations of classic stories that improve upon the originals, or Moon Scoop's bold new direction, the FF have more good shows than bad, at least so far. Maybe these series will make some kind of a return in the future. In fact, one already has. The stinger for Fantastic Four First Steps showed the opening for a fictional animated show within the movie's world that is a loving homage to the 1967 version. While First Steps certainly was another attempt to adapt the Fantastic Four to the big screen, this part was an absolute treat for me, as not just a fan of the Hanna-Barbera series, but also of the general aesthetic for 60s cartoons. I love it whenever something new pays homage to an older style of animation, and it's honestly great to see something this retro from a modern movie. The theme song sounds like a fusion between the first opening for the 90s series and one of the theme songs from the Marvel superheroes, except somehow it's infinitely better. There are some great references like the shortcuts they occasionally took to cut down on the action, to Dragon Man looking just like Jack Kirby drew him, to the way the team runs perfectly mimicking the Hanna-Barbera running animation. All of these show that everybody who worked on this sequence really knew their stuff. And now that X-Men 97 is getting a second season, just maybe we'll get Fantastic Four 96 in the future. I think that a great way to test the waters would be to have the FF guest star in an adaptation of Fantastic Four vs. the X-Men, if a revival of the animated series ever happens. I think that it should go beyond Tom Tataranowicz getting to do his idea for a third season. Why not let him remake season 1 in his vision as well? Can you imagine how cool that would be, adapting all the classic issues used for the first season and doing them again in ways that are not only much better but also aligned with season 2?
A nice dream, but dreams are meant to be broken.
Let's face it, that will probably never happen, but even if no other good Fantastic Four stories are ever made, we'll always have these shows and over 300 comic issues to enjoy. If you ever want to get into the franchise, then I would recommend starting with the Hanna-Barbera show. As good as season 2 of the 90s series is, I will admit it might be a bit too much for somebody who has no idea who the characters are. It's best to watch at least some of the 1967 version so you can get a feel for what the characters are like, then see them taken to new heights in season 2 of the animated series, as well as enjoy seeing them given an anime-style makeover in World's Greatest Heroes. Marvel's first family may not always get good adaptations, but when they do, they are truly fantastic. Until next time, Excelsior.
That's the end of Dr. Doom. I only wish we could be certain of that, Commissioner. Oh, yeah? I'll bet you we won't see him again until doomsday.